Well, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I'm driving to see my parents. Misinformation is over here sleeping, so she's not being camera shy. She's sleeping, but I figured I would record a video while I was driving or monitoring the car, because I'm not really doing much of anything. The car is driving itself for the most part. Well, pretty much for every part, except for getting into the superchargers and stuff. And if anybody wants to know, I actually am recording it on the dash cam back there. So if you want to take a look at it, we're not making an attempt to like go the entire distance without intervening and stuff. She she doesn't particularly like to do that. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is why a recession is the best thing that could have happened to Tesla. And I want to be careful about saying that because, of course, a recession is no good for anybody. Like, obviously not good for us. Not good for the global economy, not good for other car makers, not good for Tesla either, because they're having to lower prices and everything. So what I mean by that, though, is that relative to the rest of the industry, relative to the rest of energy generation, storage, relative to energy storage, relative to automotive, relative to all of these things, Tesla is way better suited to weather the storm or something like that, right? So what I mean by that is that, number one, they have incredibly elastic, flexible pricing policy. They are able to adjust every day, and pretty much they've been doing this lately, a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down, because as opposed to everybody else, almost everybody else except small players, they don't sell into a dealership model, so they get instant feedback. If they raise their prices by $500 or something like that, and they discover that, their demand drops off by 8% or something, they can find out within a day or two that happened, and then they can lower the price by $400 and get the demand back up. So they can sit here and very, very finely tune exactly what the price is relative to the demand that they want. And of course that demand is pretty much having a short waiting period on cars. So it's the kind of thing where the vehicle is like, it might say, the car always hates. It always beeps. It keeps driving fine, but it always beeps when you're in a construction zone. So anyway, they're able to adjust very, very fine grain, like every single day pretty much. Whereas if you think about a legacy auto dealer, let's just take a car that sells wholesale for $50,000 and the dealership pays whatever they pay for it, right? Versus Tesla that sells their car to the consumer for $60,000. The car is not sold by Tesla until I or somebody goes and picks it up for that price and puts down the money. So that means that Tesla can tell exactly when that car is purchased, when it was pre-ordered, how long they had to wait for it, what price that person paid, and probably a bunch of demographics about them too, because also I have my Tesla app, which means that they have a bunch of information about me. And when I applied for the loan for Black Beauty for our Model 3, we're currently in the Model Y, by the way, because it's got full self-driving and the other one doesn't, and we're not going to do an 11-hour drive without full self-driving, clearly. But anyway, they know a whole bunch of stuff about us, and that data can be cross-referenced. So they can say, what is the demographics of these people? What's their approximate income? Because they know that, because I had to do a finance, I had to do a loan application through them. So they're able to capture that data and look at that, and they're like, okay, a family that has this many children, or at least is making this kind of money or something, and wants to purchase a car for this price, went ahead and pulled the trigger now. Right? They know that, so they now have very, very specific information. Pretty much any other traditional auto dealer, they just sell it to their dealership for X amount of money, and then that dealership actually goes ahead and figures out how to sell it to the consumer and what price. So there's that middleman, and there's a big gap. There could be up to a couple of months gap, or even longer right now, because of course Legacy Auto is suffering with all of this stuff. By the way, sorry for the road noise. It's in South Carolina. Like, the roads are so bad in South Carolina. They just don't take care of their roads. So anyway, you've got that differentiation, which gives Tesla this amazing real-time information. And interestingly enough, recently Elon Musk tweeted about the Fed. Everybody's upset with the Fed. And Elon in particular is like, you're looking at old data, you're looking at lagging data, you're not seeing what's actually happening right now. And he actually said, I might be the person between SpaceX and Tesla and Boring Company who has the best finger on the pulse of where the economy is right now. And he was saying it clearly is going the wrong direction, and the Fed doesn't know what they're doing, and they just raised, I think just a couple of days ago, for Wednesday, if I'm right, they raised another 25 basis points for the prime rate. So just in my mind, also terrible idea. I will defer to Elon Musk. I think he is much wiser about all this stuff and knows a lot more than we do. But anyway, so that's number one advantage, is that they have this real-time information and they know exactly what's going on. Number two advantage that's related to that is they don't have to deal with dealerships. So if they set the price and they say we're selling this car for $60,000, that's what it's going to sell for. Ford or GM or Toyota or Volkswagen or whoever can go to the dealer, we're going to sell you this for 50 grand. We want the MSRP to be 60 grand. And that dealer can completely ignore that. They can undersell that, or they can very easily oversell that if they wanted to. They could say we're going to sell it for 70,000 instead. And that's commonly been happening, although I think that's starting to go away as inventory is starting to drastically increase in these dealerships. The second thing is that Tesla can't hide behind stuffing the channel. So again, if GM or Ford or et cetera, if they sell a car to a dealership, that car is sold. But Tesla doesn't get to count that as sold until I pick up the car, right? The consumer picks up the car, which means that you can't just stuff a whole bunch of cars into a dealership lot and count them as sold. And that means that you're seeing what's actually going on with Tesla. You're not seeing what's going on. I'm coming up on a truck with a whole bunch of Teslas on it, interestingly enough. Probably coming from Texas, I would assume. Or maybe coming from California. Who knows? Anyway, so that makes a big difference too, because every car that Tesla has sold has actually gone into a consumer's hands. There are a lot of cars in auto dealership lots right now that have been, quote, sold, including in China. And I've done a lot of videos on this, including the one yesterday. Brandon from Car Questions Answered has talked about this a lot, that you're getting these sort of channel stuffing things where you're not actually seeing the reality of what's going on. So things are much more dire for legacy auto than people think they are, because what they've been doing is stuffing the channels. And so people think that their sales aren't as bad as they actually are. But we're going to find out in the next couple of quarters, because dealerships are not going to be able to take any more vehicles in. So all of these things are very useful, and then are very advantageous for Tesla. The third thing that's really, really important is that Tesla has had very, very high margins. Their gross margins have been, in the upper 20s as recently as like a year or so ago. Now they're down into the upper teens, like depending on how you want to count it, somewhere between 18 and 20% gross margins. I think they said 19.6 was last quarter. But anyway, it varies, right? But they have very, very high margins. Wow, there's only four cars on this one. Very weird. It seems like they should have more cars on the back. They don't have so much. Maybe you'll catch it out the back end as I go by. Anyway, the vehicles, they have such a higher margin that they can actually compress this. So Ford currently is producing the F-150 Lightning, and if they're charging you as a consumer 55 grand for that car, it's costing them $110,000. But even their ICE vehicles, their internal combustion engine vehicles, they're selling those cars for very, very close to cost, maybe 5 or 6% gross margins. So it's just about nothing. They're not making hardly anything on these cars, which doesn't give them the room to squeeze the margins if they need to. Whereas Tesla, since they were previously making almost 30% margins, they're able to squeeze those margins and really reduce them and still make a reasonable profit on that. And that is a huge advantage to Tesla over other vehicle manufacturers, because they can't come down in price when Tesla does. Specifically EVs, but just across the board, even gas cars, they're not able to do that. Again, I super apologize about, oh my gosh, South Carolina, you guys really need to up your game on terms of roads. This is just atrocious. This is an interstate highway, and it's this bad, so it's pretty pathetic. Okay, and then the other thing that Tesla has is the ability to capture revenue after the sale. So again, take our Mazda CX-5 that we purchased a few years ago. We bought that car, and we took it back in for service at the place a couple of times, but I think that was all stuff that they had thrown into the package before. So they basically didn't make a penny on us. Certainly not Mazda. Maybe the dealership did. They didn't make a penny on us, and they even gave us a zero-interest loan. So they really lost money, because they loaned us a bunch of money at 0% interest, and then inflation happened. So we effectively got away with paying, quote-unquote, less for the car than it actually had been before. So all of these things mean that that Tesla is able, because they're able to sell you software either at the point of sale or after the fact. And it could be a subscription to just getting, high quality data so you get live traffic information and all that kind of stuff. Or it could be a big ticket item like full self-driving, which you can either subscribe to for $200 a month, or you can pay $15,000 to get it permanently. But in either case, that's a lot of revenue that Tesla is generating that other car companies just are not able to capture. So again, as Elon Musk has said, and he said this in a theoretical way, don't assume that this is real, but they could sell their cars at 0% profit. So they could drop another 10 or 20% in terms of the cost of the vehicles, or at least in terms of the profit they're making. So it's not quite that much, it's not 1-to-1. But anyway, they have a long way to go before they get to zero. And they will do that up to zero because they have a lot of cash on hand that is helpful to them. And they can go as low as they want because they can capture revenue later. And what they can do in the meantime is capture market share because nobody else can match them on this. And then the last thing they have, which is related to this again, is that they have almost no debt. They basically have zero long-term debt. They just have like rolling credit that they use to buy stuff, right? That kind of a thing. So it's like having a credit card that you put your groceries on and all that kind of stuff, and you pay it off every month. So that's short-term debt, not the same thing. In terms of long-term debt, they have almost zero long-term debt. And if you look at other companies like Volkswagen, Toyota in particular, good gracious, Ford, GM, etc., they have massive amounts of long-term debt, which is weighing them down. So all of these things together, if you're in a recession, who do you want to be? Do you want to be somebody who's making very high profit margins still, even right now? Somebody who has real-time data about the way that things are being sold? Someone who has the ability to raise and lower prices as needed, like on demand, and because you're making profit margins already and you're not having to squeeze out nothing, you're not having to squeeze water from a stone or something, and then somebody who is able to capture revenue after the fact, so you can even go down to basically 0% margin or even slightly negative if they wanted to. So all of those things together position Tesla so much better for a recession than any other auto company. The only other ones who are kind of like that are smaller startups like Rivian or something, but they're not in a cash flow positive situation and they're not making that many vehicles. So Tesla is just in a super position relative to everybody else. Now, economics wise, this is a terrible thing. This is a situation where everybody is going to be hurting over the next couple of years. Everybody's going to be hurting over the next couple of years. It's going to be very rough on us consumers. It's going to be rough on businesses. It's going to be rough all the way around. But if you are anybody, you want to be Tesla right now. They are incredibly well positioned. And the effect of this is that in a tough environment, if it's a nice environment, everybody survives, right? If you think about Darwinian evolution, if you have this lovely, parkland and everyone's a vegetarian or something like that, then everybody survives. If you have a difficult, really hard environment where it's hard for anyone to survive and people are eating, the creatures are eating each other, all that kind of stuff. If you're in a situation like that, the strongest are going to survive. The ones who are best situated for those types of circumstances are the ones that are going to come out ahead. And guess who is that apex predator in a recession type environment? It is Tesla. And when you look at this, if this recession goes on, even if it's relatively light, but let's just hypothetically say that we get into a full recession by summer, and that goes on, and the Fed reverses their decisions, and all of this kind of stuff happens. And so it's like, mid to late 2024, early 2025, by the time this recession is over, my prediction, and I've been talking about this, is that Tesla is going to be on top. They may not be selling the most cars yet because they simply might not have enough capacity to manufacture vehicles, but they're going to be the top dog and on a trajectory to clearly be the largest auto manufacturer in the world by that point. This recession is just going to speed things up. It was already heading that way, but it's going to speed up because of the fact that the economy is bad and everyone's more conservative. These other businesses are in survival mode. That you can't make big moves. You can't adjust and spend billions of dollars to move to EVs. when you're trying to just survive day to day. And Tesla is not in that situation, and that means that they're able to move forward where everybody else is stuck standing still, and that is an exceptionally good situation for Tesla. All right, so let me know what you think. Am I completely crazy? I really do believe that I'm correct, and if and when we actually get into this recession situation, it's already pretty bad, and the consumer sentiment is bad, and all of that. So I think we're already there, basically, in terms of consumer sentiment, and certainly if you look at a place like China, I think we're already pretty much heading there, and that it's only going to get worse for a period of time, and that is all to the eventual benefit of Tesla. Sorry, construction likes to beep at me, even though I'm holding the wheel. But anyway, I think it's nothing but to the benefit of Tesla over the next couple of years if the economy is bad, and that they are going to be clearly, if we get a significant recession for a year or so, Tesla by 2025 is going to clearly be the top dog. Even if they're not quite selling the most cars yet, they will be clearly the ones who are at the top dog, and they will be selling the most cars as soon as they can ramp all their factories. All right, let me know what you think in the comments, and sorry again about the road noise and the construction. Like I said, it's South Carolina. They really, really suck. They need to get their acts together. Sorry, South Carolina residents, but your government needs to work on their roads. In the meantime, everybody have a lovely day. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, go to the merch store, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of that good stuff. I will talk to you all later from DC. Bye-bye.